very successful, numerous attacks on that area. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use.
Mr. President, who told you that information was not classified? Which of your national security advisors told you that? A president who is rarely at a loss for words, clearly not interested in answering that question. The president did want to weigh in personally on all of this. That event was added to his schedule. It was initially not on his public schedule that reporters see. When we walked in the room, we immediately noticed that Mike Waltz was at the end of the table, and Trump referenced his national security advisor repeatedly as he insisted that that conversation about military plans was not classified, contradicting what we heard last night here from Jeffrey Goldberg.
He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential, too technical, and I worry, honestly, that sharing that kind of information in public could...
My communications, to be clear, in the Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information. The Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for determining whether something's classified or not. And as I've understood from media reports, the Secretary of Defense has said the information was not classified.
There was no classified material that was shared. I deferred to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. Nobody was texting war plans.
I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room.
Which Walt said tonight he takes full responsibility for. My deeply sourced White House insiders are here. Semaphores Shelby Talcott, PBS NewsHour's Laura Barron Lopez, and Axios' Alex Thompson. Laura, just let me start with you on what Trump was saying about how this investigation got started, what this is going to look like, and the Mike Waltz of it all. What did you make of what you heard from him tonight?
Well, it sounded a lot like when the president said that Elon Musk is going to police his own conflicts of interest. Basically, that the person who's responsible, who's saying that they're responsible, is actually going to be in charge of determining when.
I don't think the president realizes this is inconsistent with his message on Europe right now, and he was actually suggesting delaying this. But overall, how the administration has been handling this in terms of saying this was not classified information. That is the line that they are now putting out there. The question is Jeffrey Goldberg going to release those messages that he withheld because he was worried that they could do damage potentially?
It's true. I mean, he's very concerned about what that means for people, for arms, for people who are in the military, but also he said earlier today, I think he was talking to the Bulwark, where he said that it's something that he may have to discuss with the people that are advising him, that are advising the Atlantic on what they can and can't release, because yeah, there are questions. What if the administration may claim that nothing was classified? What if Jeffrey Goldberg releases some of this information and then he has to be held responsible under the Espionage Act? Because some people who, military experts and national security experts have said that very well the information in that Signal chat that was being discussed in that Signal chat could be violations of the Espionage Act because of the fact that it was in that Signal chat and because of the fact that there was an unsecure person with no security clearance inside of that Signal chat.
Have you heard if the White House is bracing the rest of these messages to potentially come out and what that means for the denials, which are, from the president, from the
senior living for mom? And there
further, for specifics, Director Gabbard returned to this talking point.
According to open source reporting at 11:44 on the morning of March 15th, Secretary Hegseth put into this group text a detailed operation plan, including targets, the weapons we were going to be using, attack sequences, and timing. And yet you've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group.
My source tonight, you just heard from there, an independent senator from Maine, Senator Angus King, and thank you so much for being here. You seemed quite skeptical of the argument about this discussion not being classified, what they were talking about. If imminent military strikes aren't classified, Senator, what is?
Well, that was exactly the question I asked. I mean, you heard the question. According to Jeffrey Goldberg, and he quite responsibly didn't report the details, but he said that Hegseth's text talked about was, it would be funny if it weren't so damn serious, because it was so inept and incompetent. And again, the reason it's serious is these were national security matters. Had Jeffrey Goldberg been less responsible and broken the story that day, it could have compromised American lives.
Yeah, and I should note that Mike Waltz said just a few moments ago that it wasn't a staffer who added Jeffrey Goldberg to that text, that somehow it was him. He said he took full responsibility. But, Senator, I do want you to listen between how Republicans on Capitol Hill have been talking about this and how they're describing it compared to how the CIA director described it today.
Mistakes were made, no question.
Well, it's a mistake. We make mistakes.
It was a mistake, and they'll tighten up and make sure it doesn't happen again.
It's a mistake that's been corrected right now.
This was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
Senator, how is the administration's refusal to even acknowledge or call it a mistake, which the president also later would not call it that, how is that sitting with your colleagues up on the Hill, especially the Republican ones?
Well, privately, I think that my Republican colleagues are pretty upset. I guess the term would be eye rolling. To characterize it as a mistake is, that's too easy. You don't make mistakes on this level. Of course, you do make mistakes, but these are I keep saying this, these are the top national security officials in the entire country. They were having a group chat on an app, on a publicly available app that can be compromised. We know that. And in fact, as I mentioned, the Pentagon, ironically, after the leak, but before the story broke, issued a memo throughout the Pentagon saying, don't use Signal for this kind of discussion. And it was a serious problem. Now, what the administration's going to do, I wish they had come into the hearing today and acknowledged that this was a serious breach. It was something that's going to be looked into. They're going to review it. They're going to see that it never happens again. But instead, there's all this circling of the wagons and, well, just saying it's a mistake. It'll blow over. Don't worry about it. We got to worry about it, because what does this tell us about the competence of this group in general, making the most important and consequential decisions that a country can possibly make?
Senator Angus King, let us know if the chairman of your committee pushes for those messages. Thank you for your time tonight.
Indeed. Great to be with you, Caitlin.